Alright, we are back again today and we are doing yet another leader insight. This might be the last one that I do. Obviously, as the full set will go live on the client tomorrow night when I record this, so Thursday night. So by then, I think everybody will be able to sort of figure the leaders out. If you guys do want me to do the last two leaders, do let me know in the comments. This one I thought I would do because I actually started looking into this and I put it together and I played it, and oh my god, I actually really liked it. So I thought I would give my little insight on this deck as we wrap up this quick little insight series. But just before we get into today's episode, I want to give a quick little plug. I'm going to be doing my first collaboration with another content creator here in Australia, and that is PX3. So massive shout out to Jimmy. If you do not know Jimmy runs PX3, which is a pro player esport team here in Australia, and these guys absolutely tear down the house when it comes to Fusion World, One Piece, and of course Yu-Gi-Oh! I've had the privilege of playing against some of these players, and getting to play against these players is like kind of what you aim for. You want to try and beat the best, well, you got to try and beat these guys. And Jimmy, massive shout out to him, because he helped the wife hook me up with this mic. So for anyone that watched the videos many months ago, remember just how dreadful my mic sounded. So Jimmy was the man that helped get this mic sorted. So big shout out to him. And he hit me up. He said, "Man, let's play some games. Let's record some content." And man, I was like, I had to play the be cool role. Like when I first got into TCG, I like absolutely looked up to these guys. Thought hopefully one day I could play against them, all that sort of stuff. And here we are. I'm gonna get to do a collaboration with them, so I'm pretty keen for it. Hope you guys are keen for it as well. The link to PX3's YouTube will be in the description. But keep a lookout over the next week for the games. All right, enough said. Let's get into this. So, if anyone doesn't know, this is the one of that we get every set, which is the 3 or less life leader, and I've definitely slept on this deck, as I probably have a lot of the other decks. I'm someone that can look at a list and look at a leader and think, that doesn't seem okay to me. I thought that this leader was going to be very mid. I did not expect it to be super aggressive, so I definitely slept on it. And when I saw a little bit of gameplay with it, and then I built it myself, I knew I had to give this deck a go, because I always like playing very aggressive. I'm definitely not one for playing the slow control games. I'm just like swing. If you win, you win. You lose, you lose. So anyway, when attacking, draw one card, and your awaken is 3 or less. You do draw one, whereas in last set, you didn't draw one for your 3 or less awaken, which I think actually really hurt that deck. Permanent, this card gets 10,000 power. So unlike androids, which needs 6 or more energy to get the 10k, this is just 10k anytime. So like a lot of the time, you can get awakened turn 3, but I've been saving my awaken to turn 4 just to get that extra draw. Because a lot of the time, if you are pressing them so hard, they can't afford to go for your face. They have to start going for your board. So you don't need to combo out of attacks where you can get 1 extra string, see 1 extra card kind of thing. So at the end of your turn, you discard 1 card from your hand. If your life's at 2 or less and you have 7 or less energy, you add the top card of your deck to your life. So as you can see, like you will see there's only 1 card over a 3 cost at the moment. Outside of obviously the SCR, which does become a 3 cost. So you're just playing lots of small bodies and just trying to swing a lot of times. This promo that we get from pre-release is like probably like the main engine of this deck, as well as the SCR. Like you need to see these, multiple of these, if you want to just go absolutely nuts. So the one thing I did find is that it does run out of gas. If you can't chain SCRs and they answer one, you can't come back with a second one, then you start. Because you see there's no real draw outside of this. This is the only real way that you can keep yourself going for lots of turns. Because yes, you do take a life and gain a life every turn. Kind of like Zamasu with his filter. But there's no outside of that, outside of the Bulma, which you only want to play early game to find these Gokus, I think. So I don't know. I just feel like it runs out of gas pretty easy, and if you can't chain the big boys and just keep swinging crazy numbers or swinging a lot, you kind of just sort of run out of cards and die. I'm sure you could probably make a more controlled variant of this where you run like the Earthling package and the Hercule, and you can just like keep reoccurring them. Like that would probably allow you to stay alive longer, but I just wanted to go full gas, and I think this is not a bad idea. This is not a bad list for just going full gas. So I also think that this deck is actually a bit of a meta-changing deck. Now, whether I explain this properly, because I usually, like in my previous videos, like sometimes I just start waffling and you guys probably don't really get what I'm talking about. I'm like one of those people that I can think in my head what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to do, but trying to explain it is a whole different story. And I think this card alone in this deck, mixed with the Destructo disc, like makes you have to play cards in your deck. If you cannot answer this card, the turn it is that after like they play it one turn, if you can't answer it in the following turn, there is a good chance you're probably gonna struggle to win that game. And then because you have to force them to have the second one. If you can't answer this, it's very hard, and it just keeps swinging 45 double at you, and they can play it for so cheap. So you need to be able to remove this. And the other thing I think, I don't know, I feel like we need to move in, well, there's going to be decks moving into one drop, maybe even 2 drop blockers. Because this, like, they will be able to play this literally every single turn. Obviously, if you can't remove it, they just keep swinging with it. But if you remove it, there's a chance they can play it again. And if they mix with the Destructo disc to give it 20k and crit, it's a very, very powerful combo. So I think you need to have a look at having a 1-drop blocker in your deck. If it is, especially if it's a 10k like what this deck here is, I think like after testing it a little bit, it sort of gives your opponent something like, so like they have to play around this. They can't just play down this and swing double crit. They have to try and remove this. And if you're doing this on like turn 4, turn 5, they might not have energy to answer all the cards. So I feel like 1-drop blockers, even 2-drop blockers for that matter, might become somewhat relevant in the meta. Just I think if you don't respect this deck, it will just run over the top of you, and it can, like, you can be finished very fast. So we'll go through the deck. Obviously, we talk about the 1-drop blocker. Add a card from your life to your hand. Now, this is non-optional, so just remember, like, just think you're sequencing right. Like, in my testing sometimes, because there is another card that takes if you have 3 or more life unconditionally, you need to sort of sequence it right. If you have a turn where you want to play out your blocker to protect yourself, you play out the blocker and then you swing. So you just need to make sure that you're aware of what your life is, what you're attacking with, and when you're playing this. So like I said, I just think blockers might become somewhat relevant because they just demand an answer. If not, then you get to potentially get out of what could be a 65k double crit. Moving on to 1-drop. Now, I haven't looked... I know that there is a Chi-Chi that I think searches a Goku and a Gohan. I haven't double-checked that card if it has a cost restriction or not. That was one card I forgot to put in as an option. If you want to try and add more, potentially more consistency for trying to find your Gokus. But this one searches for a Planet Namek, and pretty much most of this list is Planet Namek, so there's a lot of targets. So we've got 4, 8, 12, 16, it takes itself, 16, 20, 24, 28. So there's like 30 targets. So you're in a lot of trouble if you whiff off that. And then, as I did say, I feel like 1-drop blockers might become a problem. So to combat the 1-drop blockers and be able to answer them easy, we just put in Kamis. 10k combo, just KOs a 1-drop. If people go to that situation where there is 1-drop blockers, like in the mirror, if you're playing the mirror and you have like 5 energy and you want to like play this and play a searcher or something like that, you can. Or if you want to like Kami to KO something, play this and Destructo disc or something, like you sort of can. And then we move into another Self-Awaken package because it's it's just not green. It just feels so weird playing very aggressively, taking your life in green. But so to take our life on turn 2, we've got Roshi. So you add up to 1 card, and then you can KO 1 drop, which, you know, if they have a blocker or they play down an early cantrip, just KO that. Not a drama. Now we move into, and someone can correct me in the chat, but is this the only 5k combo SR that green has? I feel like there might be one more, but it's a very rare thing to find in green with SRs. So on play, add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. Another Self-Awakener gets a 20k body on the board. The when KO'd, add up to 1 card from your hand to your energy in rest mode. Now this, this kind of is like a bait. Like, in this deck, you don't care about ramping. So if they want to swing and KO your Krillin to give you an extra energy, that can help you the next turn. But it's also like, if you think about it, when you're not drawing on Awaken side, and it is sort of you're kind of at like 5 or 6 energy, you probably don't really need another energy for free, and you don't want to lose one from hand. So I guess the fear factor of, okay, I don't want to KO the Krillin because they're going to get an extra energy, so they don't attack the Krillin, which then in turn gives you another 20k swing the next turn. So I've never had the Krillin come up with the when KO'd effect, but I think it is just that slight little tease of your opponent has to decide, do I risk giving them 1 extra energy for, because that could be like a Destructo Disc or a blocker to take a life, you know. So I feel like that is okay, but outside, this is also just like a Planetnamic Searcher with 5k combo. And then we go into our Gohan, which is a pretty crazy card, I think, for just green in general. If your life's at 2 or less and you choose any battle card and KO it. So, I mean, it is in this deck, it is pretty easy to meet that requirement, which is like really good for like responding to like big bodies outside of a 4, like so 5 and up. And then the other one is you can add a card from your life to your hand, then KO a battle card 3 or less, which is really, really relevant. Like if you're on curve, Self-Awakening, and you want to KO one of your opponent's things, that just KOs a 3 cost. The one thing that like green does struggle with is 2 and 3 cost removal. That is rather cheap, and 3 energy I think is pretty fair for that. So that I think is a pretty good card, very justified not having any combo, speaking of SRs. Now this guy is amazing in this deck. So if you haven't got this guy and you've got a chance to go to pre-releases, go to pre-releases and get this card. I would probably advise nearly even not playing the deck without this, because this card is like just for this deck. There's I'm sure down the line there'll be other green Gokus that come out, but for this deck, I think this card is just like the bread and butter. Like when attacking, if your life is at 3 or more, you take a life. So straight away, it's always taking your life, Self-Awakening, and then the other part, activate main. If your leader is a Sun Goku, you switch to active mode. So for 3 energy, it's a dual attacking 25k, and I think that is very, very strong. And just note that it is 3 or more. So if you are at the 2 and you want to swing twice, but you're thinking, oh no, I can't. Well, if you're under that, if you're at 2 or less, then you can swing this thing without taking any life. So this is what I was saying about tying it in perfectly with the Muri. So if you have a turn where you've got, like, say for example, let's just say 4 energy, like you probably will be on 3 life at 4 energy. There's a good chance, but you can play this out to get yourself a blocker, and then play this and swing without taking a life. If you play this, swing first and go to 2, and then play this, you go to 1. So you just have to be mindful that you take your life at the right time to establish your board. And then obviously, as we said, the SCR. I think really this SCR probably goes in a lot of green decks, just if they want to use a double strike to finish game. Like Droids is obviously 6 and 40k, whereas this is 7 and 45. But if your life's at 2 or less and you don't have one of these in your battle area, it becomes a 3 cost. So I think that's going to be a really great finisher for just green decks in general. So absolute must-have 4 of. Hopefully you guys get your copies of this. Hopefully these aren't hard to pull on the sim, and hopefully that this card is easy to obtain on the sim. I can't remember how we got I think we got the Bardock, the pre-release promos from the last few sets relatively easy. I think it was just from like leveling up, but hopefully it is good, because like if you want to play this deck ultimately, you really need this card. And hopefully the pull rates are pretty good for both SCRs, because I think you want to be running like 4 of each SCR from this set, because I think they are very good. And, well, IRL, I pulled, what did I pull? I pulled 7 of these from my case that I got from FBO5, and I pulled 1 freezer, so I was very lucky I was able to pick up some freezers, but yeah, definitely make sure you get your SCR copies, guys. Super combo, well, this never changes. We just use Chi Chi because I was just like pulling it out through the bulk. Because we are a deck that we don't overly care about our energy, and a lot of the time, like, we are tapped out, like a lot of time in green, you leave 1, maybe 2 up for defense for your meteors and stuff like that. You can build your deck to have meteors and all that sort of stuff, but I think that it's just a waste of energy. When you could be using things like Dr. Brief Spaceship or Destructo Disc offensively, as you can only use Destructive Disc offensively. So I feel like it's a pretty good inclusion to have instant Kamehamehas here. Because, like, even if, like, for example, like, they do KO the Krillin, and you're like, okay, I'll set an energy, just set, like, a dead card. Maybe you have, like, 3 SCRs in hand. You could just set a SCR in your energy, and then just pop it with instant Kamehameha. So I feel like this is really good, just helping you keep alive that little bit longer, or just pushing a bit more damage through, as it is like 15k for free. Dr. Brief Spaceship, so when your life's at 2 or less, you draw 2 cards. I think this is like really what keeps you going for the longer game. Like, if you want to go a longer game, you probably need to be seeing all of these if you want to be lasting a long time. Like I said, I did feel like this deck ran out of gas, and you just sort of like slowly have like pretty quickly your hand does dwindle away. And then Destructo Disc, which is an absolutely cracked card, especially in this deck. On 4 energy, you can swing a 65k double crit. And a lot of the time at 4 energy, your opponents are awakened too, so they have to try and defend a 65k double crit on turn 4. And just, if they can't answer that, then they're down to 2 life. They didn't get any cards to hand, and then you're staring down a double strike. You might even have another double strike in hand for the following turn. So this card in this deck is really good. I think this card in general is really good if you want to be aggressive, because it's just a 1 for 20k at any stage, but it does gain crit if you're at 2 or less. So can be a good game ender. So like, if you're trying to get your opponent down to like double strike range, and you're trying to get them to use a lot of cards, you just throw 20k crit behind it, and the crit really does like demand answers. And then finally, we have Full Powered, which is pretty much just Sinister Stickle, but for green. I actually really wish that they printed this as a 3 cost, and they gave it a permanent, if your life is at 2 or less, it gets reduced by 1. I think because then a lot of other green decks could use it a bit better. Like, when your life's at 2 or less in other decks, you're probably not really going to get much value off it. Yes, it will clear up the board, but when you're at 2 or less, you're probably like dancing around that double strike range or a couple of big swings. Yes, it is good to like get some combo off the board for 2 energy if you need to, but I definitely feel like maybe it would have been, I personally think it probably would have been a better card if it was printed as a 3 cost and had a permanent if your life is at 2 or less to reduce it by 1. So as we have been doing, we've got a few other options, and these are just a few that I've sort of plucked that might be helpful. I always run II Beam. I always try and find a way for II Beam just to KO combo most of the time, or like if you're playing the mirror and they got 2 of these established, 1 drop just gets rid of them. But obviously the downside is that you're running an extra card. A Warm Greeting, because I feel like Jiren probably phases out of the meta a lot more now that the SCR Freezer answered it. So yellow, so every color has an answer for it. So you might not see too many Jirens around, and you generally are swinging like pretty aggressively. So I don't know if Jiren will be a problem for you, but if for whatever reason you think Jiren might be a problem, or just there's other problem cards, you can just warm greeting them. The other one is a TN. It does KO a 2 cost for 2 energy, but it is like it's like crit. You don't get it to your hand, so you don't get that card. It just goes to your drop. So if you're more worried about KOing 2 drops and stuff like that while you're self-awakening, rather than like the Roshi that KOs a 1 drop, you can obviously use the TN. I probably personally wouldn't, because I would prefer to get the card to hand. And because we are trying to self-awaken, get big bodies on the board, and even if you want that extra energy, Nappa is the way to go. Again, I like exactly for the TN, like the TN, you don't get it to hand. Nappa, yes, you get it in the energy, but when you're not drawing on your awakened side, you want to be seeing as many cards as possible. So I personally don't think Nappa is the card for me, but if you're wanting to, like, on curve, take your life, get an extra energy, Nappa by all means. The other one is Chaozu, which is like pretty much like a Para Brothers, except only 5 or less, but your life has to be 2 or less. So in this deck, it is very conditional, and this can be like really good for just answering, say, like this dual attacker, so they can't swing twice, or stuff like that. So Chaozu can be relevant, especially in this deck where you do float at 2 or less life a lot, and it is another 10k combo. And then finally, like, we're talking about blockers, so if you want a 2-drop blocker that is 10k, that takes a life, you've got another you've got a Yard Rat guy here that is another option for you. So yeah, so that is the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy this leader insight. Let me know in the comments how you would build your green Goku deck. Good luck to anyone doing pre-releases. Hope you guys pull really good from your packs, and we'll catch you all soon.